You have to understand, my father, in his own childhood, was without a positive male influence.
What if being born is actually a bad thing?
Do you want to say that my very existence is a mistake? Or do you refer to David Benatar? He wrote a book about it. It's called Better Never to Have Been. He claims that it would be best for everyone never to have been born. That's a radical idea. You can easily imagine that it provoked many people.
How does he justify it?
His reasoning is quite logical. That's why he's convinced that he is right. But I think his reasoning has some flaws.
What is supposed to be logical about birth or life?
Well, for him, life is all about pain and pleasure. He believes he has found an asymmetry between the two. His argument goes as follows. Pain is bad, pleasure is good. The absence of pain is good because then nobody suffers. And not having pleasure is not bad, because there is no one who would miss this absence, if no one is born in the first place. It follows that never being born has an advantage. Those who are not born don't experience pain and do not miss out pleasure. But those who are born may experience pleasure, but they will also experience pain. Therefore, according to Benatar, it would be better if no new children were born. Otherwise, they would have the disadvantage of suffering. However, if they are not born, they will not notice the absence of pleasure.
Did he really say that?
Although the good things in one's life make it go better than it otherwise would have gone, one could not have been deprived by their absence if one had not existed. Those who never exist cannot be deprived. However, by coming into existence, one does suffer quite serious harms that could not have befallen one had one not come into existence. The implication of all this is that coming into existence, far from ever constituting a net benefit, always constitutes a net harm.
Well, I want to have the baby.
Well, great. Let's have it then. Let's see how I can screw the fourth one up.
Benatar is against people being born at all, so he is close to the Eugenics movement, although there are some differences. Eugenics too wants certain people to stop having children. This is known as negative eugenics. But eugenicists also want particularly able people to have more children. Their goal is to breed people. For Benatar, there's only negative eugenics. For him, no one should be allowed to have children. Although he is against forced sterilization, he has nothing against people being sterilized without their knowledge. Benatar believes he has found the right method for this.
We can certainly imagine a society in which non-procreation could be widely, even if not universally, ensured without the invasions of privacy and bodily intrusions. This would be so if a safe, highly effective contraceptive substance could be widely administered without the knowledge of the population or the consent of individual people. In the drinking water, for example, or by aerial spray. Can anything be said in defense of a right to reproductive freedom in a society in which procreation could be prevented in such unobtrusive and gentle ways?
The Nazis told the Jews in the concentration camp that they would be showered instead of gassed, but that doesn't make their murders any more humane.
Of course, that puts Benatar in line with eugenics. Most of the sterilizations carried out by the eugenicists were done without the knowledge of the victims. The poor people who went to the doctor were told that it was just a routine procedure. Then they were sterilized. But Benatar's position is different to eugenics in that he doesn't believe that the life of people can be improved. He does not talk about wars or climate change. He doesn't think that climate change should be bad and that people should stop having children. He doesn't believe in a doomsday scenario. Instead, he thinks his position is right even if the world gets much better. Because even if the world gets better, there will still be pain. His argument does not depend on whether the world gets better or worse.
Should we all die then?
Benatar refuses to commit suicide because he believes that it is associated with pain. For him, suicide is bad, but it is good never to have been born. Benatar therefore sees it as a moral offense to give birth to someone, claiming that one is then responsible for the person suffering. If someone does not bring children into the world, they are free of this guilt.
Benatar can't be right. That would be too sad.
That's not an objection, because something is not wrong just because it's negative. But as I said, there are problems with this argument.
Most people do not regret being born.
Benatar says that people have a bias. They remember good memories more than bad ones. He says that everyone is wrong about his own experiences. But who can claim to really know what each individual experiences and feels? If there's a bias, it means that people are more likely to have a good life. Also, the opposition of pain and pleasure is superficial. For Benatar, the world is black or white. There is pain or pleasure. Something hurts or gives delight. In reality, the world consists of many shades of grey. Many things can be partly negative but also partly positive. Experiences cannot be reduced to dualism. The causes of pain or pleasure are often complicated and not easily answered. Incidentally, he ignores the masochists for whom pain is a pleasure. There are no masochists in Benatar's world.
Probably Benatar is not a masochist, and maybe he has a very unhappy life.
We don't know anything about Benatar's personal life. There aren't any photos of him online. He doesn't want people to use his life to explain his theory. But the question is not whether Benatar has an unhappy life. Only he can decide that anyway. And that is precisely the problem. Everyone can only decide for themselves whether they feel pain or pleasure. No logical judgment can be made from the outside. The philosopher Wittgenstein has already explained this.
He said, "I can't be wrong about the fact that I feel pain."
He meant that it's not possible to make a logical judgment about pain. You can't use logic to understand pain or pleasure. Therefore, Benatar cannot judge and certainly cannot logically conclude that people experience more pain than pleasure. Only each person can decide if they feel pain or pleasure. There is no objective authority to judge this. Benatar makes a mistake in the way he has set out his argument. This is an example of a logical fallacy. His premise is wrong. To claim that we are wrong about our feelings is just arrogant.
Even the best lives are not only much worse than people think, but also very bad.
He says people can't judge their own lives. He thinks everyone is immature. Here's another way of looking at his argument. Parents tell you that you can't go to parties, so you won't feel any pain. They say, the party can be great fun, but you won't miss it because we forbid you to go to any party and you will never have this experience. Is this a sensible attitude?
For heaven's sake, no.
Benatar is convinced that it is better never to experience anything. You avoid the pain and don't know what pleasure you are missing, because you don't know what it is.
He is fundamentally against life, against existing at all.
But a theory is only true if someone has been born. What does not exist has no advantages or disadvantages. It has no information. Information and truth only exist through an objective external perspective. But this does not exist if there are no beings who can proclaim it. Logic presupposes the existence of a logical thinking being. Only through existence can something be true or false. In addition, Benatar does not deny himself the right to exist, but rather others, namely those who have not yet been born.
Perhaps pain can at least be used as an argument against existence.
I think there is a reason why we and all living beings feel pain. It helps us to survive. We will do anything to protect our bodies from pain, because if we didn't feel pain, we might not take care of our bodies. For example, imagine you injure yourself and feel no pain. However, these injuries can lead to your physical death if you don't heal yourself. Our ability to feel pain protects us from such behavior. So, pain is a good thing. Wendy Mogul explained this in her book, The Blessing of a Skinned Knee. Pain and pleasure go together. Through pain, we become resilient and can survive and have pleasure. But in the end, we can only decide for ourselves whether we experience more pain or pleasure.
But a life without pain would also be nice.
You worry too much. You always did.
There is a way out that everyone can take. Buddhist monks believe that life is full of pain that they want to overcome. However, they avoid the logical mistakes made by Benatar because they know that they can only relate their suffering to themselves. Each monk can only overcome his suffering and enter nirvana. If they don't have children, it is not because they want to spare them from suffering, but because they have withdrawn from life themselves.
And do they enter nirvana?
I don't know.
But what if we could know?
Benatar assumes a determinism that does not exist. The world is not deterministic for us. Regardless of physical determinism, we cannot know how our lives will develop. If you stay a pessimist, you may miss out on happiness. You cannot know with certainty that the future will be bad because you do not know what may happen. We don't know whether we will feel more pain or pleasure, and that is the only thing we know. This leaves us with only the hope of a good life. Even if this expectation is not confirmed, in the end, all that remains is hope, regardless of your convictions.
And I have hope, at least that you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe and see you next time.